you saw anything threatening.
I believe that I told him that I didn't see anything threatening, but he seemed angry. He seemed like he was gonna throw a punch, but I don't recall saying anything other than that.
Okay. I guess I want to be somewhat careful about, this description and your answer to whether you actually observed some physical act that was threatening from Kyle. Your Honor, may I approach? And in this instance, I'm going to ask whether this, in fact, helps your memory. Counsel, this is 13, line 4 through 7.
Thank you.
I don't know. You need me to hold this for the
No,
mic?
you're good.
I can hold the plug.
Huh?
I can hold the plug.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
So those details kind of help?
Yes.
That your response to whether he did anything threatening was that, well, he rocked back and forth a little bit. Is that right?
Yes.
He said, I don't know if he would have thrown a punch or something. Correct?
Correct.
Now, we've seen video, but just confirm, he didn't throw a punch, right?
No.
And when you heard him make that threat, he was right up there next to the vehicle next to your dad.
Yes.
When he was up there close next to your dad, did you see him produce anything sharp, like a weapon?
No.
Anything like a knife or a screwdriver or anything like that?
No.
Did you see or did you hear him make a statement that he had something, a weapon on him, and that he would use it?
No.
And after Kyle was at the front of your dad's truck on the other side, what happened next?
Like when he was, I'm sorry, I'm confused.
So we've just talked about a period of time when Kyle was very close to your dad.
Yes.
And after those few moments, seconds, what happened? What did Kyle do?
So he had threatened us, and then my dad said something, I'm not sure what. I saw his lips moving. I don't know what was said. And next thing I knew, a shot was fired.
And so let me talk a little bit about that. You said that when Kyle was up next to the truck, you could hear Kyle, but your dad responded.
Yes.
You telling us you don't remember what he said?
No, I don't. I blocked it out.
You blocked it out?
I don't remember. My focus was that he had said that my little cousin and my best friend were in my house. My safety was their concern. Their safety was my concern.
Totally get it. But best you can do is confirm that your dad responded in some way.
Yes.
Did you watch Kyle walk away back towards his house?
I did not. I was on my phone.
Okay. But you did see where your dad and Jason were positioned when your dad took out a gun.
He was next to the truck.
And you saw where Kyle was when your dad took out a gun.
Yes.
And can you describe to the jury where Kyle was now?
He was in front of the plow. He was walking backwards, and it was obviously you have to go by my house. So in my mind, he was walking towards my house.
I'm sorry, when the gun came out?
I believe so, yes.
Do you remember what you told the detectives?
I do not.
Your Honor, may I approach? Perhaps this will help your memory. This is 15, begins at line 8. Good.
Okay.
Does that help your memory of it?
Not really.
Okay, so what, this is the same statement where at the time you did have a memory, correct?
Yes.
And at the time you knew it was important to be
Yes.
truthful. And so what you told the detective when he asked where the shooting took place, you said, you described it and you actually drew a little map, but you said Kyle was running. And they asked, the neighbor was running? And you said yes. They asked you, do you know why he was running? You answered, I'm assuming because my dad pulled out his gun. On the next page, you said, I would assume so. I mean, I would run too. Do you remember that?
I don't.
And do you remember telling the officers when the gun came out that Kyle was moving towards his house, not your house?
I do not.
I just want to be fair about this. This is page 16, line 1.
Okay.
Does that confirm that when you were talking to detectives, you described the gun being out and that Kyle was moving away towards his own house?
What?
Does that confirm in your mind when you said, when the officers asked you, well, what direction was Kyle going in? Towards his own house.
Okay. Yes.
Is that truthful and accurate?
Yes.
All right, Mark, an exhibit, please.
Yeah.
The diagram associated with the...
We can go in full.
Okay.
We can go in full.
Full? All right. Page 26. Yeah, of course, it's I had just referred to, during this conversation with detectives, that you had also done a drawing of where people were situated at the shooting.
Okay.
I'm showing you, for the record, what has been marked as States 26. Appears to have your name and date at the top. Is this the drawing that you made?
Yes.
And can you show us or tell us what these symbols indicate? There appear to be stars on the street out in front of your driveway.
Those are people.
And which people are these?
So that top one's Kyle. That's my dad and that's me.
And then at the time of the shooting, who's that?
I have no idea what that is.
Are you claiming that Kyle was shot directly in front of the plow?
I don't really remember.
Okay. There happens to be a figure, appears to be a figure, just past the corner of the edge of your house. Are you claiming that's not Kyle?
I don't remember. I don't.
Nevertheless, you were clear with the officers at the time that when the gun came out, Kyle turned away. You characterized it as running towards his own home.
Yes.
And I don't want to, kind of force an experience on you, but did you? So we know you saw him produce the firearm and you saw Kyle react. You describe it. Do you remember him being shot?
I didn't see it. I heard it.
The firearm that your dad had was one that you were familiar with, correct?
I knew of it. I wasn't.
Well, you had gone actually out to the firing range with him and described it as a Glock, right?
Yes.
And so you were familiar with it from literally going to a fire range with your dad.
Yes.
You told investigators that you were aware that your dad took the firearm anytime that he plowed at night.
Yes.
And so that's what I mean by familiar with
Okay, then yes.
firearm. after you heard the shooting, what did you see?
I saw my dad get back in the truck, and we pulled back into the driveway, and I was very anxious. He was anxious. He started to call, like he dialed 911, and before he could press the call button, they had already been there.
So he couldn't call fast enough? I mean, you say before he was even able to call, they were at the scene?
Yes.
So what was he talking about before he was trying to call 911?
He got back in the truck, and he didn't really say anything. He looked at me, I looked at him, and we pulled in the driveway, and then everybody showed up, the cops showed up. My dad got out of the truck with his hands up.
Do you remember the police asking about what was said inside the truck after your dad shot Kyle?
I don't remember what they asked me, but I remember they asked me questions.
What's that?
I remember them asking me questions.
Okay. Again, I want to be fair here. May I approach this witness? I'm going to show you page 9 begins line 18 and really goes down to the bottom of 25. Why don't you read this and tell me if it helps you remember.
Okay.
Does that help your memory or no?
I mean, I don't remember him saying that, but
Okay. This, again, is the same statement that you were being truthful, honest, and
Yes.
accurate. Your memory has just gone through a lot last
Yes.
year. And so this indicates that the detective asked you, what was the conversation like when you got back in the truck with your dad? Or your dad got back in the truck, right?
yes.
And you described it then in some detail. You just saw that your response to that question was he looked at me and he was like, what do I do? And you responded, what do you mean, what do you do? And his response to that, to clarify, he said, he was like, well, do we run? And you responded to your dad, said, I'm like, no, we're staying put. He was like, yeah, you're probably right. You responded, I am right. Like, you don't run. He continued to ask you what he should do. And your response was, I don't know. I don't know. You sit here and you wait. He asked you whether he should call 911. You merely said, if you want. I don't know. Like, I literally don't know what to tell you right now. Like, I just got out of work. Like, I'm exhausted. Like, I don't know. This is your path, you said to your dad. Remember that?
I don't.
And yet, this is the accurate, complete, and honest statement you provided that night
Yes.
about the conversation you had in the cab of the truck with your dad.
Yes.
Judge, can I have this mic? Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you. Those were my questions. As you know, Mr. Sisti will likely have some follow-up.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Afternoon. You doing all right?
Yeah.
How's the rabbit doing? Okay.
She's jumpy, but she's good.
Okay. Prosecutor was saying that he wanted to be fair with you. Remember that? He said that a few times.
Yes.
Prior to today, was he fair enough to give you this transcript?
I can't see that far.
Judge, I object to the characterization of it implicitly being unfair.
It's cross.
I never got this.
You never got this transcript?
I did not.
This transcript that the prosecutor's been using over the past 25 minutes?
No, I've never received that.
Did the police, after your statement, give you an opportunity to review your statements at all?
I don't remember, but I don't believe so.
And between the 4th of April and today, did you sit down and have a review with the prosecution on this transcript?
I did not.
So this transcript was being used for the first time that you saw it today.
Correct.
All right. We're going to go through it a little bit too, but I'm going to forget about the transcript for a second, okay?
Okay.
I want to talk about things you actually remember today, okay?
Okay.
The ones that you're under oath to testify truthfully.
Okay.
Okay. Let me ask you, and ask you as straight as I can. Do you remember Kyle saying that he was going to fucking kill your father and you?
Yes.
Do you remember that distinctly?
Yes.
Now, when you heard that, how did that make you feel?
I was scared, obviously, because someone had just threatened me, but that had triggered my anxiety, so I kind of started to shut down and block everything out.
All right, but I want to make sure this jury knows that that's something that is crystal clear, correct?
Yes.
Right. That is something that you surely told the police, right?
Yes.
Right. And that is something that is ingrained in you that you can't even shake out, right?
Correct.
And it makes you nervous and anxious to this day, doesn't it?
Yes.
Is it fair to say you felt that you were threatened that night?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that you believed that you could have been subjected to serious bodily injury that night?
Yes.
Or death?
Correct.
And is that what you were worried about while you were sitting in that truck right next to your father?
I was afraid he was going to hurt us, yes.
And that was the sense that you got, correct?
Correct.
And the sense that you got with regard to death or serious bodily injury was because of the behavior of Kyle, right?
Correct.
Now, I'm going to back off this for a second because I want the jury to understand your relationship with your dad, okay?
Okay.
And again, you know, I'm sorry, okay? I mean, we're in a courtroom. This is an important case. I'm going to go right to it. You love your dad,
Of course.
and he loves you.
Yes.
I mean, he's absolutely dedicated to you, isn't
100% all the time.
he? And he's been your single parent guy for quite a while, hasn't he?
Yes.
And why don't you tell the jury how long?
We've been on our own since I was in, I want to say, 8th or 9th grade.
Okay. And he's been taking care of you since then, right?
Yes.
I mean, he's the guy that looks out after you and, you know, takes you to school when you got to go to school, right?
Takes me everywhere. School, cheer practice, dance, competitions, everywhere.
He's a good dad, isn't he?
Yeah.
And in fact, that night, he made sure to go and pick you up. I mean, it was a crummy day. It was lousy out, right?
Yeah, he wouldn't let me drive.
He was worried about your safety that whole day.
Yes.
And when you got in the truck with him that night when he picked you up, he was doing okay, right? He wasn't angry or anything, was he?
No, I mean, he was tired from working, but he wasn't angry. He wasn't anything like that.
You guys were getting along just fine?
Yeah.
And when you started plowing, did you do a couple jobs with him before he went to your house?
I don't think so. I think we went right home.
Okay. And where were you working? Why don't you tell the jury?
I was working at a local pizza store in my hometown.
Okay. One of the local pizza places?
Yeah.
So he picks you up, and it's during that snowstorm, and you guys were going to go right home, right?
Yes.
And again, who was in the house that night? I know it was your dad and you that lived there, but who else was there?
My grandparents were downstairs, my little cousin was downstairs, and then my best friend was upstairs.
Your grandparents.
Yep.
And they care about you too.
Yes.
And Jason was taking care of them too, wasn't he?
Yes.
So he was taking care of you, he was taking care of your grandparents. How long had Jason lived in that house, do you know?
We've lived in that house since I was 2 or 3 years old.
All right. So he's been a regular fixture in that neighborhood for a couple decades, right?
Yes.
When you got in that truck that night, did you anticipate any trouble at all?
No.
It was just a regular night.
Yeah.
And when you were plowing in front of the house, was there anything weird about it? I mean, was it just the typical plowing thing that you were doing?
Yeah.
Now, the jury has seen some videos of the whole, not the whole thing, but as much as we could capture on video, okay?
Okay.
Would it be fair to say that you didn't capture the whole thing either?
No, I did not.
Would it be fair to say that the things that stuck out to you were the fear that it created when Kyle confronted your father?
Yes.
And the fear that it created and has been continuous with regard to the threat on your life?
I'm sorry, one more time.
The fear of the threat on your life?
Yes.
And as far as your dad was concerned, he wasn't swearing or anything at Kyle from you recall. Do you recall?
I don't remember.
He wasn't aggressive toward Kyle, was he?
I don't believe so.
In fact, Kyle came up abruptly and without any notice, correct?
Correct.
I mean, he kind of surprised you too.
Yes.
And did you notice that your father just stood up and stood in one place and didn't even move for a while?
I wasn't paying attention at that time. I was starting to get out of the truck, and that's when I noticed him. And as soon as I got back in and shut my door, I noticed my father had stepped out.
Okay, so you got out of the truck and you were just going to go in the house or something?
Yes.
And then Kyle came?
So Dad parked, and I was getting ready to get out, and as I opened my door and looked up, I realized Kyle was right there, and I just got back in the truck and shut the door.
Okay, and why did you shut the door when Kyle was?
Because he was right there, and I wasn't going to walk past him. I didn't know why he was over here. I didn't know what his intentions were.
All right, but then you got to hear his intentions, right?
Yes.
And he claimed that your father was plowing snow into his yard or something like that?
Correct.
But you were right in that truck, right?
Yes.
You guys weren't plowing snow into the yard.
We were not.
So did that make any sense at all to you?
No, there's a telephone pole in the way.
When you describe Kyle, would it be fair to say that he was enraged?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that he was acting really strange?
I mean, he was rocking back and forth, so I'd say he was angry.
You know, the prosecutor asked you whether or not Kyle had anything in his hands or anything, said he had anything. You didn't know if he had anything or not, do you?
His hands were in fists, so he had nothing in his hands. I don't know if there was anything in his pockets.
Right. You didn't know if there was anything in his pockets. Your father wouldn't have known either, right?
Correct.
But all you guys both knew is that you were being threatened.
Correct.
And you didn't even know why, right?
Correct.
It made no sense to you, correct?
No.
That somebody would be that enraged and that violent for no reason whatsoever, correct?
Correct.
And the reason you got back in the truck is because you were scared of Kyle.
Yes.
So this only took seconds. You know that, right?
Yeah.
And he came upon you unexpectedly, and he made a threat, and it didn't make any sense to you at all.
Correct.
The detective in the case wanted to know whether or not Kyle was close enough to your dad, or if he threw a punch, he would hit your father. And was he close enough to your dad where if he threw a punch, he would hit your father?
I believe so, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. But they were close up, right?
They were close, yes.
And you know what? I mean, what's weird is that the jury probably has a better view of how close he was to your dad than you did, because they got to see the videos. Did you get to see any of those?
No.
Probably don't want to either.
Oh,
Now, after the shots were fired, okay, your dad drove the truck right into your driveway.
yes.
And would it be fair to say he made no effort whatsoever to try to avoid the police?
He didn't.
In fact, he drove into the driveway. You guys, I take it, you guys were in some kind of a confused, scared state at the time.
Yes.
There was some exchange at the time, you know, should we go, should we stay?
Yeah.
But that wasn't a big thing. Your father wasn't saying, well, I'm leaving anyhow or anything.
No.
Like that. It was just something right after the fact that something came out, right?
Yes.
And what he actually did is he parked the truck and he shut it off.
He parked it. I don't remember if he turned it off or not, but he parked it.
Okay. Were you there when the police came?
I was.
Okay. So he was with the truck. He didn't move an inch from his property, correct?
Correct.
And he was about to dial, I'm sorry, he had dialed 911. He was about to engage me, correct?
Yes.
So he was taking that affirmative act at that time to contact emergency services, right?
Yes.
And before that could even be completed, the police were there.
Yes.
And from what you saw of your dad, was he completely cooperative with the police?
Yes. As soon as he saw the blue lights, he got out with his hands up.
He had his hands right up,
Yes.
ready to go. Okay. And you were there to observe him. Did he resist or say anything stupid to him or anything?
He didn't say anything to him. He was just outside standing with his hands up.
And did you see them escort him into a cruiser or anything like
I
that?
did not.
Okay, I mean, you were trying to stay away from this whole thing.
There was an officer talking to me, just letting me know to gather my things, and they were going to put me in the back of a cruiser.
Because they were going to take you to the police station.
Yes.
So when we're talking about, you know, recollections and what's in this transcript, it's fair to say that you didn't get to review it at the time.
Correct.
You didn't get to review it over the past year.
Correct.
And you didn't get to review it, like, before you took the stand.
Correct.
And the only time you've been seeing this stack of papers is this afternoon.
Correct.
And in all honesty, you probably did forget some stuff, right?
I'm sorry, one more
You
time?
probably did forget some stuff.
Most of it, yes.
Yeah. But what's the one thing you remember about that night, the clearest, without any question at all?
I remember him threatening us. I remember that after my dad pulled in the driveway, he got out with his hands up and didn't resist, and I remember going to the station.
And your dad would do anything to protect you, wouldn't he?
Of course he would.
And you told the police that too.
I did.
Thanks, Gil.
Thank you, Judge. You know, on that last point, yeah, you told the police that your dad would do anything to protect you, but you also told them you didn't think you should have shot him. Correct?
I don't recall.
Pardon me?
I don't recall.
May I approach, Judge?
Yeah. Hey,
20. 21, 26, 13. Can I ask you to read that sentence? And they asked you, and you answered, do I think you should have shot him? No. Repeat it again. Do I think you should have shot him? No. Correct.
Correct.
And isn't that based on all the facts and circumstances you knew and saw? right?
Okay.
Correct?
What are you asking? I'm sorry.
You answered them that you didn't think he should have shot him because you were there to hear and see the events, correct?
Correct.
You were also asked by the police whether you were in fear of your life. And your answer was no. Because my dad was there. Is that right?
I don't recall, but that is something I would say because my dad would never let anything happen to me.
But that's, Mr. Sisti asked you a number of questions, well, sort of stated questions, answers, that you were in fear for your life, weren't you? And you answered, yeah.
I was fearful because he threatened me, but I knew my dad wouldn't let anything happen to me.
Okay. And so the officers asked specifically about that. They asked you whether you were in fear for your life. You said no, because my dad was there.
Yes.
You knew that your dad previously told us that you were aware your dad carried a firearm every night when he went plowing.
Yes.
You were aware that he was armed.
Yes.
They were asking you when or if Mr. Violet actually did anything, not say anything, but did anything threatening, and you described rocking back and forth.
Correct.
Rocking back and forth, and maybe he could throw a punch.
Yes.
Okay. But that was when they were standing face to face, correct?
Correct.
When your dad shot Mr. Violet, they were not face to face.
I don't recall.
When your dad shot Mr. Violet, he could not have punched him.
I don't recall.
When your dad shot Mr. Violet, he wasn't rocking back and forth, was he?
I don't recall.
And the only time you heard a threat was when Mr. Violet was standing next to the car.
Correct.
Not when he was standing out in front of your house in the street. Not when he was pacing back and forth, correct?
Correct.
And now Mr. Sisti asked you, Attorney Sisti asked you, is it clear in your mind that he said, I'm going to fucking kill you and your family or your daughter, correct?
Yes.
The first part of that threat was, if you keep moving snow onto my property, right?
I don't recall.
You certainly recall that he came over and was saying, I'm sick of you putting snow in our yard, correct?
I don't remember that.
Page 314, your arm may approach. So this is page 3, Council 12 through 18. If you could just read that to yourself, see if that helps you.
Okay.
Does it help your memory?
Not really.
Okay, so what you said to investigators at the time, I got back into the truck and I didn't catch all of it, but I started listening. And all I heard was, I'm sick of you putting snow in our yard, which we weren't, putting snow in his yard, whatever. And like got bits and pieces of it, and all I got was, I'm going to fucking kill you and your daughter. That's all I got. Correct?
Correct.
So you heard something about snow getting pushed, and you heard a threat.
Correct.
And after that, Mr. Violet walked away.
I believe so. I don't remember.
And you at the time just said to the officers that he pulled a gun and that Mr. Violet was heading back towards his own home.
He was walking.
Described it to the officers as running.
Okay.
Fair, walking quickly back to his...
I don't remember.
Okay. The issue about, you know, what your dad did, pulling back into the driveway, he didn't end up running, but he did have the conversation with you about whether he should, right?
Apparently, yes.
And how old were you at the time when he's asking you whether he should run after shooting a man in the street?
I was 19.
And it was you who answered him, no, stay right here.
Correct.
I've shown you the transcript a number of times. This is a transcript that you have said is a statement from a complete and honest account. Anything about seeing that transcript look unfair to you?
No.
And my understanding over the past year is you haven't really wanted to talk to anybody about any of this, correct?
I haven't been offered.
You haven't wanted to either, correct?
I didn't go out and reach out, no.
No. I'm not suggesting you should, but you have communicated to people that you really don't want to talk about this, correct?
In public,